pray that I never sin again as long as I live, if I could just get out of here.
You gotta be close to your kids, right?
I am.
You're blessed to have them.
In a nursery home, an elderly man named Frank Sheeran was observed reflecting on his youthful days. In those times, he toiled as a delivery driver at a slaughterhouse, dedicating 8 years without a single day off. Despite his relentless efforts, he was underpaid and struggled to support his family. During a breakdown near a gas station, he encountered Russell Buffalino, a middle-aged man who assisted him. Grateful for the help, Frank continued his job after a brief introduction. Later, at a bar, he met Skinny Razor, a restaurant owner. Frank offered him discounted steak, but Skinny Razor underestimated him and requested a taste test. Undeterred, Frank resumed his regular work the next day. He requested additional meat for delivery, but the worker showed little interest in his request. Instead, the worker provided a seal for the truck door and asked Frank to attach it before leaving. However, Frank chose to put the seal on and depart without complying. During his journey, he made a stop at Skinny's restaurant to deliver some meat, repeating this process. Frank even shared his earnings from Skinny with other workers. Impressed with the meat quality, Skinny increased his orders, prompting Frank, who was nearing retirement, to exclusively deliver all the meat to Skinny. When Frank's boss discovered the empty truck, he was displeased and sued Frank for theft. In response to the lawsuit, Frank sought legal assistance and encountered William Buffalino. He asserted his commitment to defending his client, even if the client was guilty. William inquired about Frank's motives for taking all his boss's meat, and Frank candidly shared his story. Working tirelessly for 8 years without a raise, Frank's simple confession became William's leverage in the courtroom. William skillfully handled the case, swaying the judge to side with him and Frank, leaving the judge angered at Frank's boss for filing the lawsuit. The judge even warned Frank's boss against suing him in the future. Frank was deemed a commendable worker in the judgment. Following their trial victory, William took Frank to celebrate at Skinny's restaurant, where Frank discovered that William was the cousin of Russell Buffalino, the mobster who had once assisted him with his truck's issue. In the restaurant, Bruno, a Mafia boss, engaged in conversation with Skinny, but his attention was fixated on Frank. Russell had taken a liking to Frank's personality, particularly discovering that Frank, an Irishman, could speak Italian, a skill acquired during his 4 years in the war in Italy. Frank, though seemingly quiet and wise, revealed a cruel side from his wartime experiences, manipulating prisoners into digging their own graves before killing them. Upon leaving the slaughterhouse job, Frank joined Russell, who operated a curtain shop as a mobster front. Russell, a highly respected figure, assisted other mafias in various ways, such as taking over businesses, facilitating promotions, bribing judges, resolving disputes, and even orchestrating killings. Frank's relationship with Russell deepened, and he became Russell's confidant, handling crucial tasks like collecting overdue payments. While Frank was generally composed, an incident involving his daughter being mistreated by a store owner triggered his fury. He confronted the owner, resulting in a physical altercation where Frank not only beat him but also broke the store owner's hand. Frank's proximity to Russell led to Russell becoming the godfather of Frank's child. Frank sought additional work and encountered a mafia figure who wanted a laundromat demolished due to its interference with his business. After receiving payment, Frank swiftly carried out the job, only to discover that Bruno, a highly respected mafia in the area, was a stakeholder in the laundromat. Bruno, angered by Frank's actions, was appeased by Russell, who assisted Frank. To compensate for Bruno's loss, Frank had to collaborate with him, and subsequently, his role evolved into eliminating the individual who had ordered the destruction. From then on, Frank became a regular assassin, often receiving orders from Russell. Despite the grim nature of his work, Frank considered it a tribute to Russell and never sought payment. This transition led to an improvement in Frank's life, enabling him to provide for his family and enjoy leisure time with them, supported by Russell. Russell, unable to have children of his own, treated Frank's children as his own. Eventually, Russell introduced Frank to Jimmy Hoffa, a powerful figure in the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Jimmy enlisted Frank to resolve a taxi driver dispute in Chicago, where he successfully revitalized Salerno's taxi company after eliminating a rival. Frank and Jimmy's relationship deepened, and they often spent time with their families discussing business. Frank discovered that Jimmy utilized pension fund money from union workers as a loan to the mafia with significant interest. This loan business, managed by Jimmy's associate Alan, earned him a 10% share. Most of the loan money contributed to the mafia's gambling ventures, playing a pivotal role in the development of Las Vegas. Jimmy amassed considerable wealth, allowing his wife to acquire 22% of land in Florida and even establish her own skiing club with a snow mountain. One of Jimmy's fund recipients, Sam Giancana, a businessman and close friend of the Kennedy family, played a role in supporting John F. Kennedy's presidential campaign through Mafia loans. Kennedy, in return, had an agreement to assist the American Mafia in gaining control of businesses in Cuba from Fidel Castro. Concerned about the potential threats to his business, Jimmy disapproved of Kennedy's presidency, anticipating limitations on his legal activities. After Kennedy's election, his appointment of Robert Kennedy as Attorney General posed challenges for Jimmy's enterprise. Frank conveyed these issues to Russell, who promised to influence JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy, regarding the Mafia's support during the election. Assigned the task of delivering weapons for an attempt to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba, Frank's mission ended in failure, tarnishing America's reputation. To rectify the situation, Robert proposed dismantling Jimmy's illegal activities to restore JFK's reputation. Aware that Jimmy had contributed $500,000 from workers' pensions to Nixon's failed presidential campaign against JFK, Robert targeted them. During a workers' meeting, Tony Provenzano, the head of the New Jersey branch, raised concerns about retirement funds, causing tension with Jimmy. Tony, known for his cruelty, had a dark history, including ordering the killing of competitors and disposing of their bodies in a crushing machine. Tony's arrogance instilled fear in Jimmy, as any mistake by Tony could have legal consequences for Jimmy. To mitigate this, Jimmy decided to replace Tony with his deputy, and he persuaded Frank to take on the role for the sake of his family. After initial hesitation, Frank agreed, receiving a significant promotion to become the union's president as Jimmy faced ongoing trials. Jimmy's troubles escalated when attempts were made on his life during a trial, prompting increased security measures. His group, including Russell and Frank, began investigating and blackmailing witnesses and reporters to withdraw their reports. While enjoying coffee, Jimmy and Russell learned about JFK's assassination, bringing relief to Jimmy as he believed it weakened the legal strength of Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General and younger brother of JFK. Despite JFK's death, the jury unanimously sentenced Jimmy to 5 years in prison. The union's lending activities persisted behind bars, orchestrated by Jimmy through his confidant Fitz. Fitz, serving as the interim president, faced resistance from Russell, who disapproved of Allen's involvement in Mafia loans. Russell tasked Frank with teaching Allen a lesson to make him aware of his mistakes. The following day, Frank used gunfire to strongly convey a lesson to Allen, ensuring he never obstructed union loans again. Subsequently, Allen avoided repeating the same mistake. Simultaneously, Tony was apprehended by the FBI and incarcerated alongside Jimmy. Tony received a 7-year sentence. While dining in the prison cafeteria, Tony approached Jimmy, inquiring about his missing retirement funds of $1.2 million. Despite both being in jail, Jimmy clarified that their cases differed, with Tony being charged with extortion and Jimmy facing fraud allegations. Their disagreement escalated into a physical altercation. Russell informed Frank about another Mafia figure named Crazy Joe Gallo. Despite both being Italians, Russell disliked Joe due to his bad temperament, disrespectful manner, and willingness to harm fellow Italians to achieve his goals. During Russell's birthday celebration, Joe mocked him, leading to a confrontation where Frank intervened. Despite Joe's disregard for other mafias, Frank knew what needed to be done. While Joe's wife and children were dining at a restaurant, Frank appeared and fatally shot Joe in front of them. The following morning, Frank observed the news of Joe's murder during breakfast, and Peggy, his daughter, realized her father's involvement. After serving time in prison, President Nixon was elected, recalling Jimmy's significant contribution to his candidacy with $500,000. Nixon promptly arranged parole for Jimmy, granting him freedom. However, the Union was now under Fitz's control. Determined to regain control, Jimmy faced challenges, particularly his ongoing issues with Tony in jail. This complicated his efforts until a meeting in Florida reignited tensions between Jimmy and Tony, leading to a physical altercation. After the encounter, Jimmy sought Frank's help in obtaining Russell's permission to eliminate Tony, a task Frank considered challenging. Recognizing the difficulty of Jimmy reclaiming the Union chair, Frank attempted to negotiate with Russell, but most mafias advised against resorting to violence. Jimmy's growing impatience fueled aggressive actions, using the media to tarnish Fitz and Tony's reputations, sparking a Cold War between them. In response to media attacks, Fitz retaliated by deliberately destroying Jimmy's friend's boat. Jimmy countered by orchestrating an explosion in Fitz's son's car to discourage him from promoting his son for a Union branch office. Fitz then retaliated by terminating Jimmy's wife from a branch office of the Union. Jimmy, overwhelmed with emotions, publicly disclosed that Fitz had borrowed pension funds from the Union to support the Mafia's illicit ventures across various locations in exchange for exorbitant interest. This revelation greatly disappointed Salerno, a prominent figure in the Mafia, as Jimmy's words posed a potential threat to their operations. Fearing the repercussions, Salerno sought Frank's assistance in persuading Jimmy to cease his actions. Despite Frank conveying Salerno's message, Jimmy adamantly refused to retire and insisted on reclaiming the union's leadership, disregarding the potential harm to both himself and the Mafia. Frank found himself in a dilemma, torn between loyalty to his friend Jimmy and the regrettable consequences of Jimmy's truth-telling and determination to expose Mafia secrets. Recognizing that the Mafia would likely pursue Jimmy for fear of exposure, Frank, too, became entangled in trouble with other Mafias who identified him as Jimmy's close associate. Russell attempted to mediate the situation by organizing a gathering, emphasizing to Jimmy that the union's significance extended beyond his personal ambitions, impacting the survival of all Mafias relying on the union's financial support. Salerno informed Russell that Jimmy obstructed loan disbursements and wielded influence to prevent donors from contributing funds to the union, resulting in numerous stalled applications. The impact on the Mafias was severe, with the looming possibility of inter-Mafia conflict over union loans. Russell, faced with a dilemma, contemplated a solution, persuading Jimmy to cooperate and alleviate loan-related tensions in his pursuit of union leadership. That night, Russell, as a friend, attempted to reason with Jimmy, emphasizing the warnings from the Mafia regarding his funding involvement. Despite Jimmy's insistence on linking funding to his leadership, Russell and Frank found themselves in a quandary. In a final effort, Russell devised a plan, entrusting Frank with an award ring symbolizing the new leader's identity and protection. Acknowledging the uncontrollable situation, Russell implored Frank to intervene and talk to Jimmy, stressing the need to halt Jimmy's actions. Despite Frank's repeated warnings, Jimmy remained defiant, possessing legal evidence of Mafia transactions and threatening media exposure if harmed. After careful consideration, Russell made a pivotal decision, instructing Frank to promptly travel to Detroit. Russell orchestrated a meeting between Frank and Jimmy, a signal to Frank that he was assigned to eliminate Jimmy. Although aware that carrying out this task would harm Jimmy's family, given their close friendship, Frank had no choice but to comply with Russell's orders to protect his own family. Taking a plane to Detroit, Frank contemplated the weight of his mission throughout the journey, saddened by the unfortunate turn of events for both him and Jimmy. Upon arriving in Detroit, Frank awaited Jimmy's son to transport him and Sally, another associate of Tony, to meet Jimmy. After picking up Jimmy's son, they proceeded to Jimmy's house, only to find it empty upon entry. Jimmy, visibly irritated, prepared to leave when Frank, in a sudden turn of events, drew a gun from his jacket and fatally shot Jimmy. Hastening back, Frank reported to Russell, claiming success in the mission. Meanwhile, Sally and Tony disposed of Jimmy's body through cremation, erasing evidence of the murder. However, Jimmy's demise did not bring resolution. Instead, complications escalated. Sally, at Tony's behest, eliminated all of Tony's rivals, prompting Russell to dispatch Frank to eliminate Sally. Subsequently, a trap was set by several Mafias against Russell. Russell and Frank were arrested by the FBI, but Russell had eradicated evidence of Frank's involvement. Frank faced charges solely for detonating a factory, and his valuable assets, a gift from Jimmy, were seized to mitigate his sentence. While incarcerated, Salerno battled prostate cancer, Russell suffered a stroke, and Frank grappled with arthritis. It was at this point that Russell began regretting his choices, realizing they should have defended Jimmy and ousted Tony instead, yet the events had unfolded. Carrying this regret, Russell endured it until his demise during treatment. Frank, eventually freed, found himself too old for his previous endeavors, relying on medication. His daughter Peggy, who knew the truth, harbored resentment and refused to meet him. Consumed by remorse, Frank visited a coffin dealer the next day, arranging a coffin and prepaying for his own funeral, recognizing his impending end. As everyone he knew passed away, Frank remained the last survivor. He chose to unburden himself, confessing all the murders and illicit activities to a pastor. The secrets were closely guarded, staying undisclosed until the involved parties met their own ends. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.